Hello everyone. In this lecture I am going to talk about phytoremediation, and this is the part 3 of that topic. In the earlier two parts I have described the basic concept, its advantages, disadvantages, and two of the processes by which plants decontaminate the environment, that is phytoextraction and phytostabilization. Now let's discuss more of the processes by which plants decontaminate the environment, that is by using phytoremediation. Phytoremediation processes. Plants carry out the phytoremediation process usually in 6 ways, and these are phytoextraction or phytoaccumulation, phytostabilization, phytotransformation or phytodegradation, phytostimulation, phytovolatilization, rhizofiltration. In the earlier two parts, we have discussed phytoextraction and phytostabilization. So let's move on phytotransformation or phytodegradation. Phytodegradation or phytotransformation. In that process, there are terms degradation and transformation. That means plants carry out the degradation of the complex contaminants into smaller units by this process. Thus, we can define phytodegradation as the degradation or the breaking down of the complex contaminants into smaller units by the plants. Now, this is carried out by the enzymes which are released from the plants, as well as the root exudates or the chemicals released by the roots of the plants. Now, the zone that is present around the plant roots, this is termed as rhizosphere, and there are diverse kind of microorganisms are present there. The chemicals which are released from the plant roots acts as a nutrients for these microorganisms, and microorganisms also degrade the complex contaminants which are present in the soil. Thus the degradation of the contaminants is carried out by the plants as well as the microorganisms collectively. These both degrade the complex contaminants into smaller units by the process of co-metabolism. Generally, it has been found that by the phytodegradation, complete degradation of the complex and recalcitrant compounds into water and carbon dioxide do not takes place, but incomplete breakdown takes place, and in which complex compounds are converted into simpler compounds, and these are less toxic as compared to the complex compounds, and thus plants contribute in the conversion of complex contaminants into simpler compounds by the way of phytodegradation or phytotransformation. As complete degradation do not occur, therefore that term, that is phytotransformation, is used generally. Now the process of phytotransformation takes place in 3 phases. In the first phase, this is termed as phase 1 metabolism. The enzymes released by the plant, like nitroreductases, added up the functional groups like hydroxyl group on the xenobiotic, and in this way increase the polarity of that xenobiotic. In the phase 2 metabolism, the molecules or biomolecules that are released by the plant like glucose, amino acids also added up the polarized groups on the xenobiotic and further increase its polarity. And due to the increase in the polarity, the toxicity in the xenobiotic compounds becomes less. And finally, these less toxic compounds are uptake by the plants and can get accumulate into the plant. Examples of the enzymes produced by the plants for phytotransformation. As I have already told you, the example of nitroreductase that is produced by the enzyme and which bring down the transformation of the complex compounds. Other examples are dehalogenase. That enzyme causes the dechlorination of the chlorinated hydrocarbons and thus causes its degradation. Nitroreductase, it causes the degradation of the aromatic nitrogen compounds. Peroxidase causes the oxidation reactions. Lacase, it break down the aromatic rings of the organic compounds. And nitrilase, it is also involved in the oxidation reactions. And these are the different kinds of enzymes which are produced by different types of plants for favoring the degradation of these compounds. Now the next process is phytostimulation. That means plants stimulate the other organisms which carry out the degradation of the contaminants which are present in the soil. This is also termed as rhizosphere biodegradation because degradation of the complex contaminants takes place in the rhizospheric region. This is also termed as rhizodegradation, plant assisted bioremediation or degradation. In that process, complex organic contaminants are broken down by the microorganisms which are present in the rhizospheric region. And these microbes are stimulated by the plants by several ways. And these are plants produces compounds like sugars, amino acids, enzymes, and these are also termed as root exudates. These act as a nutrients for the indigenous microbes which are present in the rhizosphere. These exudates favors the microorganisms multiply more and more, and these microbes degrade the contaminants which are present in the rhizospheric in the soil nearby. Root systems also bring oxygen to the rhizosphere and thus favors the aerobic transformations which are carried out by the microbes. Besides that, mycorrhiza fungi are also present in the within the rhizosphere, and these also degrade the organic contaminants and contaminants. Sometimes there are certain contaminants are such that which are not degraded by the bacteria. Then these mycorrhiza fungi degrade those contaminants, and in this way breakdown of all the contaminants takes place in the rhizospheric region. Plants also provide a habitat to the microbes in their rhizospheric region. Thus, in this process, plants stimulate the activity of the microbes, that is bacteria, fungi, which are present in the rhizospheric soil, and ultimately these bacteria and fungi carry out the degradation of the complex contaminants which are present in the soil, and in this way contaminants are removed from the environment, and this is phytostimulation. Now some of the characteristics of phytostimulation are: phytostimulation is used for the removal of organic contaminants such as pesticides, aromatic compounds, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, chlorinated solvents, etc. that has been added up into the soil by several anthropogenic sources. And it has also been found that high levels of contaminants can be toxic to plants. In the case of phytostimulation, it can be applied only to the sites where contamination level is low or the contaminants are less toxic in nature. Now the next process is phytovolatilization. In this process, the contaminants which are present in the soil and water are removed out by the plants and released out into the air. Volatilization of contaminants from the plants takes place through the surfaces of the leaves, from the stomata, as well as from the stem tissues. And in the stem tissues, radial diffusion brings these contaminants towards the surface of the stem, and from the surface of the stem these are uh, evaporated out. Organic pollutants, heavy metals like selenium, mercury have been reported to be released or to be removed from the soil and water by the process of phytovolatilization. And this process has been found to be applicable to the contaminants which are having high volatility, such as ethylene dibromide, trichloroethylene, methyl tert butyl ether, and carbon tetrachloride. Now, in the process of phytovolatilization, plant roots absorb the contaminants from the soil and the water, and then these contaminants along with the water through the xylem reaches to the leaves, and from the leaves through the stomata these pollutants are emitted out into the atmosphere. But it has been found that the concentration of the volatile compounds decreases in the xylem as compared to which was observed by the roots. And when contaminants reaches to the leaves, their concentration decreases more and more with the increasing distance from the roots. And once released into the atmosphere, compounds which are having double bonds such as trichloroethylene is rapidly oxidized in the atmosphere by the hydroxyl radicals. Now, this method, that is phytovolatilization, is not a terminal solution of the problem of contaminants, because by this process contaminants are released into the atmosphere, and thus it causes the air pollution. And when there are certain circumstances, like when there is a poor air circulation, then also it causes the more and more persistence of these volatile contaminants into the atmosphere, and thus these are responsible for atmospheric pollution, and these pose a risk to the living organisms. And here is an example, that is MTBE. This is has been reported to be long lived in the atmosphere, and this also poses risk to the groundwater when is groundwater during precipitation.